The real question is, will I be keeping my Surface Book 3? And I think never easy saying goodbye to things that you once loved.
Things that you once loved. Things that you once loved.
The computer here is currently not turning on.
Stellar. Hello, neighbor. We have returned to this familiar location for a familiar video. Historically speaking, I have made a conscious effort to purchase tools that not only fit my budget, but more often than not, they deter from the mainstream. Now, hold on, I know what you're thinking. Hipster alert. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not too keen on the word hipster. I like the word hip. I feel hip. The point is, we are the product of our environment, and the only way to resolve the endless quest that is searching for the tool that is right for you is to recognize that there might be something else. When I was fed up with flip phones, I bought one of the world's first touchscreen PDA phones with a stylus and a keyboard. When the whole world was knocking at Canon's doorstep for the latest video DSLR 10 years ago, I was busy hacking a Panasonic GH2 in the corner. Hell, I even bought a 2017 electric Kia Soul that only gets me 110 miles on a good day, and I still own that Kia Soul. Who is this man? This time around is no different. After 10 years of being what this channel would call an Apple sheep, I decided to jump ship to Windows out of disappointment with the latest MacBook offerings from Apple and sheer curiosity and not fear. I just thought, what would it be like to live with Windows for a while? And after 3 months of semi-regular use, here is what I have to say. Now, before we begin, let's get one thing out of the way first. I firmly believe that one explanation for the success of the Surface Book 3 video is that I genuinely had little to no experience with the Windows ecosystem.
I'm Cortana. A little sign in here, a touch of Wi-Fi there.
Cortana was like a new lady to me, you know? I love Halo.
One word for you.
So all of the excitement that came from unboxing this computer was pure. What do? How does it turn on? How does it? So I just want you to know that I'm still new to Windows, and my experience of Windows 10 is limited to this Microsoft device. Here is what I have to say. While a shell of Windows laptops in performance is comparable to MacBook Pros, I find that the operating system and the applications and their clunky performance can be so unattractive at times that it taints the user experience of some of the most simple tasks. Like many tools, frustrations arise when something simply doesn't work as advertised. And the problem with most modern computers is that there are so many variables that make up the user experience for professional use. So when I say semi-regular use, this is not good. All right, so the bomb has been dropped. I think you probably have an idea as to where this video is headed. I also realize that some of you may have purchased the Surface Book after watching my video, and to that I would say I am honored. Maybe we should grab a beer after this? So let's talk about some of the core issues that I have with the Surface Book 3 after 3 months of use. Microsoft customer service. It's just not good. It's one of those situations where you have to try and figure out how to navigate the robot voice to get to where you're going, and I found that if you say you're calling on the purpose of business versus personal, they're more than likely going to pass you on to someone who can help you that isn't a robot. I even spent an entire hour on the phone with some guy named Oscar, who had me wait on the phone while he ate a bag of chips very loudly, trying to unravel why he wasn't receiving my email. And knowing that this was something that I might be signing up for was very unappealing. I personally don't remember having a bad experience with Apple customer service. In fact, I can remember a handful of times where they worked in my favor, which was the last thing on Microsoft's mind. They made it seem like someone was going to help me, and they would pass me on to their higher up, and they'd say, yeah, sure, and then we'll call you back, and there was no record of our previous conversation. I just got the impression that they didn't seem to care very much about the fact that you just dropped $3,000 on their latest product to join the family. One thing that I've noticed is that when you're going between using your finger and the stylus, sometimes the touchscreen will not work with your finger gestures. Even with the stylus, sometimes I'll click on a search bar and the keyboard should pop up at the bottom, but it really lags a lot. I don't know. While the concept of detaching this monitor seemed brilliant at first, especially in its third iteration being the Surface Book 3, I've come to realize that this pairing still has its quirks. Most notably, the NVIDIA graphics card, which I was most excited about with this computer, would frequently disconnect, even if it wasn't detached. Even if I didn't hit the button, it would just detach itself. I can't tell you how many times I was in Premiere Pro and I was like, why is this operating so poorly? Why am I having a hard time doing simple things? It was because it was using the Intel graphics and not the NVIDIA graphics, and I had to go into the device manager and I had to select that setting. Not to mention the color accuracy could use some improvement. Does your computer have a thick, bulky hinge that keeps you from wedging it into comfortable places for travel? Well, you're in luck. We have a solution for you. All you'll need is some hairspray and a lighter. I'm pretty convinced that I cracked the screen by simply shutting it. I literally think because it's so top heavy, I think I just shut it and it cracked. And at the time I didn't have a screen protector. Regardless, I hate that. This is probably gonna make some of the Windows folk really angry. But one of the things that I was really worried about when I got this computer was that it would feel like an old Dell computer from the days of dial-up. And while it's obviously not that bad, I soon realized that underneath the surface was the building blocks and remnants of Windows past. You know, you still have this start menu thing and all these sharp edges. Everything's a box. It looks like frickin' Minecraft. White, blocky, everything's just blocky. Blocky. Look at this. This is like bloop, 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 bloop. And you go to a Mac computer and you're like, shoop. Look at that. Shoop, schwap, shoop. I did recently see a video titled If Apple Created Windows 10, and while it does look very, very cool, Windows still does need to have its own thing.
It's probably a good idea to document this moment and say that the computer here is currently not turning on.
Really, on any computer, there are times when you're just running too many programs at once or something goes wrong and it's just too much for that computer to handle. And so you have to force quit the program. And with Apple, it always worked really well. If I had a problem, I could just force quit the program really simple and hopefully the work was saved. With this, there's a task manager and I open that up and I start to look at this long list of programs and applications that aren't even running. I'm like, why are these here? I don't know. I need to find what is running to quit it. And
I just brought my work hard drive over from using it on the iMac and I connected it here. I got into the project and I started taking some 4K media and dropping it into the Fat Cut, and at the same time I had Lightroom open. The computer was not having that.
I did not like that.
I tried to close out of Lightroom and then it shut down Premiere. I opened Premiere back up, I started working again. I went through the same process because it didn't save, because the screen went black and the whole thing shut off. I restarted it and it's not turning on. My girlfriend wants to have phone sex more often than we have intercourse.
I said this in the previous video, but the sound quality isn't great. They needed to fit everything into this monitor. Maybe they could have had sound on the keyboard that was amplified when you retach the screen or something. Regardless, there's just not much bass, and if you're coming from a MacBook, it's just embarrassingly bad. Adaptive brightness and contrast. This is something that I never would have anticipated when I purchased this computer. What I found is that when you're in a dark room, the adaptive contrast fluctuates the contrast and the brightness of the image for the space that you are in. When you're watching a show, it'll just get dark, and then it'll get bright again, and then it'll get dark, and it'll get bright again, and it'll get dark. And when I became aware of this issue, I would scour through forums trying to find a solution. Everything that I've tried hasn't worked. Of the available operating systems on the market today, including the leading competitors Mac OS, Microsoft's Windows, and the alternatives in Linux and Chrome OS, I do feel that there's an opportunity here for something new and fresh to serve as direct competition for Apple and Windows. Imagine if a company like Amazon released a product tease for a new operating system the likes of OS 1 from the movie Her. Only an actual operating system and not just a sexy voice. I mean, I think that would be really cool, but maybe that's just the newfound hipster in me. You know, it's all just a matter of preference, and the only way you're going to know what you really like is if you make that investment and you try it out for a while and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then, you know, try the next thing. And while I had my frustrations with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, a lot of people didn't. A ton of people didn't, and we learned that from the comment section in that video. Just like a ton of you guys are gonna have zero problem at all with the Surface Book 3. This whole thing is incredibly personal and technical. My needs are not the same as your needs. And our needs are not the same as some other YouTubers. I just know that if something is not working for your individual interests and your profession, if it's slowing you down, if it's not inspiring you, if you're not using it as much as you hope that you would, which in my case, I am not. We want the best performance. That's what we really want. But because these computers are so advanced and so specific, we really want something that adheres to our personal requirements as a creative. So as for me, the real question is, will I be keeping my Surface Book 3? I think the answer is no. For the time being, I'll just go back to being an Apple sheep and use my iMac, and that's okay.
Don't get me wrong, I still love the keyboard and the export times and the ports. Gotta love those ports.
I'll be holding on to it until something new tickles my fancy. For instance, the Acer Concept D7 easel with the rotating display, as I found myself using my Surface Book 3 in this configuration most of the time for optimized performance. It looks like a really cool concept. It's still running on Windows 10, and that's really not the end of the world. Perhaps most of the issues that I'm having are just Microsoft issues. I mean, you guys tell me, do any of these issues happen with your guys' Windows computers that are not the Microsoft Surface Book? So when it comes down to it, if you're an Apple sheep, then you most likely really admire aesthetics and a good user experience. And if you're Windows cattle, you most likely admire modular, upgradable performance, for instance, export times out of this guy, or gaming, things like that. Thanks for stopping by, neighbor. I guess I'll be getting rid of this computer at some point soon, and that's okay. We had fun, and I'm sure I'll have fun with the next one too. So I guess now the only logical thing to do would be to get a typewriter.